Hey guys, and welcome back to the WJ7CA studios in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. That's fancy talk for welcome to my little radio room in the back of the house. But hey, gotta sound big sometimes, right? So I'm finally, sorry for the delay, gonna finish this little series we started a while ago, a month or more, just about what radio frequencies, what radio things are available to the general public. We're down in the CB band. We did FRS, MERS, GMRS, and yeah, now we're to ham radio, which is the top. And when I say top, well, I'm not trying to say anybody's better than anybody, but if you take the least amount available to you, which would be CB, FRS, something like that, to the most available. When I say most frequencies, modes, etc., then you would get to ham radio. So you guys go grab something to eat, and I will sit here and jibber jabber away in a minute about ham radio. And maybe you will have an interest in it, maybe you will not. But we'll be back in a minute to find out. See you then. All right, guys, welcome back. So what is ham radio? What is all of this junk? See back in there? Huh. What is this mess? What kind of crazy thing is this? And why do they call it ham radio? What is up with that? Well, let's talk about it. So what it is a hobby. Is it a good thing for preppers? No. I know a lot of guys, I see a lot of ads, get you, I don't want to get it. I got it up there, this old collector's item, the old Bofang U5. You know what? I got one here. Hold on. Oh, there we go. One of these little deals. Get one of these, and it comes with a little booklet to tell you about the frequencies. What is this? Bofang U5 RV or something like that. And you'll be prepared for the apocalypse. No, you won't. First of all, there's no the limited range on this is just a couple miles, okay? So you're not going to hear what's going on across the country. Not on this thing ever. Will it provide you some local communications? Yeah, probably, but we already talked about the FRS and GMRS will do all that and better. So get you one of those radios, and then you're not breaking the law by using a ham radio on ham frequencies or FRS frequencies or any of that. But if it was an emergency, that rules out the window. So, but basically it's a hobby. It's not going to prepare you for anything. A lot of ham radio operators love to hang their hat on the fact that they helped in some disaster in some small way. Okay. Probably, yeah, there's been some incidences. But I have all of this and know how to use all of this. And if we come under attack by the crazy Russians or whoever and the lights go out, probably the last thing I'm going to be doing is sitting in here trying to get information from some ham operator across the country. At that point, I think we'd be in a fight for our lives. And I usually don't run to the guys with the pocket protectors for help. Roger? You'd be probably far off better just to get you an old AM dial radio, and not a digital one with the dial. Wrap a wire and extension cord across the metal antenna and throw it up in a tree and sit there and spin around. You would probably catch AM broadcasts giving out information, maybe some pirate radio station, something like that. You might get some information that way, but there is no if the lights go out, let's meet here. No, that doesn't exist, okay? And if you don't know how to use the equipment, so all the stuff we talked about, and go watch those videos. I can't go over all of them again, but I explained how HF frequencies work and VHF and UHF and how that comes into play. And I went through explaining what is a frequency, what is a band, what is a meter. I'm not going to go over all that again. But the higher frequencies is very limited range, a mile or 3 or 10 or 15 on the ham bands, depending on power. Long distance communications needs to be done on the low bands, and you need to have special equipment. and lots of antennas to do it, and you're not going to have that unless you're a ham operator, because it's far too much work and the learning curve is huge. So back to what I was saying, it is a hobby. Is it a real means for communication? No, I mean, I might be able to JS8 my buddies up there. That's a digital mode up in Idaho. Hey, you guys under attack? Stuff like that. I mean, if the lights were out, and that's another thing. Most ham radio operators, myself included, we don't have battery backup for more than a couple hours. I don't have anything right now. I'm getting that. I'm going to get some surge protection where I can run my equipment for 3 or 4 hours. But if it goes out for days, I'm not set up for that. I'd have to bring a generator in, and I think the XYL, that's ham talk for the wife, is going to find other uses for that, like the refrigerator, not my radios. So I'm sure I ruffled some feathers here, but it's really a hobby. It's not really emergency communication. So I love the hats. When everything else fails, ham radio works. Great. I don't put a lot of stock into that myself, guys. I just really don't. It's a fun hobby. That's why I do it. If we go under some attack of the zombies, I may be back here listening for information, but I doubt I'm going to get any worthwhile. So let's get back to what it really is. Ham radio is a hobby. It started in the late 1800s, early 1900s as code only. Okay, code without a wire. We're talking, this is back in the day. You watch them old movies. Just came across the wire. There was telegraph operators. Mostly females, but some men, doing telegraph, Morse code, sending messages from town to town to town. That was all on the wire. Well, nobody knows who, there's no names accredited to it, but some guys figured out how to do that over the air, which is where, how did it get its name? That is such a commonly asked question, so widely debated, all kinds of theories on it, from it's the first letter of this guy, and this girl at the Harvard school. Every college has one of those. Well, no, it was this college. We don't really know, but here's the one most widely accepted and makes the most sense to me. Is back when ham radio guys were sending message to each other, there was professional telegraph people that did it for a living listening, and they said, man, they sound like a bunch of ham-fisted people slapping the keyer, They didn't have the smooth, if you listen to someone doing code that's good, it's smooth. Listen to someone that doesn't know how to do code it's pretty rough. And that's what they said, man, this sounds like some dude with big old hams hitting the keyer with hams. So, and of course the ham radio community, instead of taking offense with that, they took it and ran with it like a badge of honor. So that is why, to the best of my knowledge, and it's the most widely accepted and the one that makes the most sense, why they call it ham radio. Now, ham radio was code only pretty much till the 30s. A little bit of experimenting with voices early back 1910, but really didn't get any voice communications until around the 30s. Now, what else I got up here in my note? Did that. And then, of course, it has exploded into a bazillion other modes. So we talked about modes in all the other videos. Go back to CB, you got AM, they let you use FM now, nobody does it. MERS, GMRS, all that is FM. A little bit of data on GMRS, I've never heard anybody do it. And you would each have a radio, need to have a radio that could send. Basically, you're sending some GPS locations and some text messaging, is my understanding. I've never done it, but it's not a lot. In ham radio, you got voice, you got code, you got television, you can send pictures, all kinds of FT8, FT4, JS8, where you sit there and type back and forth to each other. They even got a mode, FT8, now that your computer will do it for you. I don't like that mode. I don't think it's real ham radio. That will probably get somebody upset. As you look up here, I'm tracking satellites. We can talk to the International Space Station. We can use a satellite as a repeater. We can bounce signals off the moon. We have HF frequencies way below the CB bands, and we have VHF and UHF frequencies way above the GMRS, MERS, FRS, etc. that we talked about. We're not channelized like all of those are. We go where we want, we self-regulate, and of course we're allowed up to 1500 watts, depending on license class. In certain areas, some bands you can only do, was it 60 meters, 100 watts or something, 100 watts PEP. There are some limitations, but not many. Now, for ham radio, you do need a license. There are 5 licenses, although I personally have never talked to one of them. 5 licenses operating. They're only testing for 3 anymore. You have and starting from the lowest to the highest. Lowest meaning not like the lowest people, just the higher the license class, the more available, more privileges you have. So at the bottom you have the novice and the technician. They no longer test for the novice, only the technician. Moving up, you would have a general. Above the general, you would have an advanced. They no longer test for the advanced. And then the top license is the extra class license. So they still test for that. They test for tech, general, extra class. Okay? And there are still some novice. I've talked to a lot of advanced operators out there. They haven't tested for that in over 25 years. So it's kind of like a badge of honor. I don't know if I would let it go to get an extra. Yeah, I probably would. But, you know, if you talk to an advanced, they've been around a minimum of 25 years because they haven't tested for that in 25 years. So all of the licenses, well, the ones they test for now, technician. If you don't know anything about radio, that's going to be a struggle just because you don't know a lot of terminology you're not familiar with, but it's actually a very easy test. If you could pass that, you could easily pass your general. Don't stop. Technician, I'm going to do a video on it. Don't stay there. Please don't stay there. You're limited to a little bit of low band digital stuff, a little bit on 10 meters, but mostly you're going to get caught up in that 2 meter 440 crowd, which if you can find some simplex users, it's pretty fun there. But repeaters, oh boy, I'm really going to ruffle feathers. Repeaters and nets in general are ruining this hobby quickly. So the 2 meter repeater crowd are the worst operators on the planet. Now there's a few good ones in there. We have a system down here where I live that's got about a 250 mile footprint. A lot of pretty good dudes to talk to on there, but you also have the guy that identifies every 3 seconds and drives you insane. And then you have the guys, the trustees of the repeater that love to sound smarter than they are and talk about nodes and all-star and echo link and make it sound super complicated. It's not. But they'll just sit there for hours on end talking about jibber-jabber technical stuff that really is something a 2-year-old can understand in 5 minutes. But they want to make it sound really, really like, this is really hard, guys. Look what I know. Anyways, so it gets, and then you got people on 2 meters repeaters that think they should never be used. You should never talk on a 2 meter repeater. It needs to be quiet, open for emergencies. The only time that you should be here is during the net. Anyways, get above technician and get to the low bands as soon as you can, please. That is where the fun of this hobby is. General, it's not hard. You should be able to get that. If you can get the tech and don't waste a lot of time in between license classes, you should move to your general as quick as possible while you're still, because a lot of the technician stuff and the general stuff are really the same, just changed up a little bit. So a lot of guys will sit down and take their tech and general at the same time and pass them. That's how very closely similar they are. Now the extra class license, I'm not gonna lie, that's a big jump and your head's going to hurt and you really gotta wanna do it. Unless you're just gifted. There are people that are gifted. There's savants out there that could probably never read the book and just pass it. They're just on levels we will never reach. But for the average guy, the extra is pretty tough. Is it worth having? Yeah, it's worth having, but you're gonna have to work for that one a little bit, and you're gonna have a lot of brain pain. So I think that pretty much covers it. We just have everything the other ones do, plus a whole lot more modes. You know, you got, they space out your channels for you. We do that yourself. So like, if you take a 40 channel CB, that's so many kilohertz, we could go anywhere in there. So it gives us more room to move around. So there's not really channels, there's frequencies and tens of thousands of them. So sometimes we bleed over on each other, but you know, we're self-regulated, and 99% of the time we just kind of, okay, hey, I'll move up a couple KCs and I'll go down and we'll make it work. So it's really a good community. There are some lids out there, that's what we call them, bad operators, lids, sad hams. Seems to be a new terminology coming around. You got a few bad apples, but they pretty much stay in 2 or 3 spots. I won't mention those, but if you know, you know. So they hang out down there. So that's all I know about ham radio, and that right now wraps up this series. Like I said, I think it's a great hobby. I enjoy it when I have time for it. I go in spurts. Sometimes I'm in here all the time, and sometimes I'm not. But it is this time of year, not so much. But the family's off doing some stuff today, or we'd be out there or rebuilding a deck. And we're in the race against August here in the South. So you'll find me in the radio room in the winter a lot, and then in August quite a bit, because it's just too blasted hot in Missouri to be outside fooling around. So I'm sure I missed something. Well, that's pretty much ham radio in a nutshell. All right, guys, God bless you. Have a good day. Bye now.